Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. What a great night. We got a surprise offensive line commitment. We're going to break down. Could there be more coming? Is this going to be a windfall for the Buckeyes? Huge in-state crop this year. Who's emerging potentially in the offensive line battles that we get a little bit of intel on? We're going to take your questions as well. As always, if you guys enjoy our content, again, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click the little alert bell. Give us a follow on Apple Podcasts. We've been growing that rapidly, so thank you for that. We just appreciate you guys so very much. Again, I think we might be getting close to announcing spring meetup, so that is potentially in the final stages. So I don't want to tip it, but it'll be lit. I promise you, it'll be fun. So, but I just appreciate you guys so much for always being on here and always kicking it with us. And I look forward to seeing you guys very soon. It looks like so. As always, I am joined by Nevadabuck, Nevada. It's funny because we always go late. We're always, we got 7 at night. So there's usually most of the news is over. But of course, last night, as soon as we ended, Max Riley commits, a kid from Avon Lake who had been crystal balled by your hero, Steve Whitfong, to Clemson literally a day earlier. And he commits to Ohio State, literally right on cue to Tyler Bowen and Ryan Day. Your initial thoughts, because again, this is a really good player. We got his film. I'm going to pull that up here in a second. But your thoughts on getting a commitment that quick for our new offensive line coach, Tyler Bowen?
Well, we've been saying for a long time, the recruiting business, I mean, I hate to say it's dead, but when you see guys that used to be respected in this business missing within 24 hours of issuing, I'm just trying to explain to you guys that when they hit, it's more luck and happenstance than it is inside information or anything like that, because they don't really have information. It's impossible. It's darn near impossible for us to be expert on just the Ohio State recruits. How in the world are you going to be an expert on all the recruits across the country like a Steve Whitfong tries to be? So all he does is just guess. And he's been on the most incredible cooler of all time the last few years. And it's to the point where the Fong bomb is now the Fong wrong. And he was Fong wrong again within 24 hours of issuing a thing. And it's kind of embarrassing at this point when that stuff comes out. But because here's the question, and I'll also ask you this as a person who's been an observer of this: do you really believe that Max Wright changed his mind in the last 24 hours? Like 24 hours ago, he's like, "I'm going to Clemson. I'm going to be Tiger. I'm going to be with Dabo. I'm there, blah blah." And then something happened in the last 12 hours. Some magical words that Tyler Bowen whispered into his ear, and all of a sudden he's like, "I'm not going to Clemson anymore. Now I'm going to be a Buckeye. I'm Bobby Buckeye." Do you really believe that's how this thing transpired?
I mean, there's no chance. I mean, when you look at the track record of like Ohio State, we get the vast majority of the in-state linemen. And I know that people bang on Stokes because he didn't take JD Duplain, and he took like Luke Whippler, who's 10 times better than JD Duplain. And there's always like these, well, we missed on Jackson Carman. And I'm like, yeah, but we got Nick Petit Frere, who's 1,000 times better than Jackson Carman turned out to be. So like sometimes like when you get these kids that are, I want to leave Ohio and I want to go strike out on my own. And I don't want to, because again, make no mistake about it. And look me in the eyes. It's like, there's some kids that are scared to death to come to Ohio State and compete, because coming to Ohio State when you're from Ohio is not for everybody. There are a lot of kids that are from Northeast Ohio, from Massillon, that they go to Ohio State, they're busts, and people never forget it. It's tough, and again, like, you could be a heralded superstar and you might get down to Ohio State and you're just not good enough. You're not good enough to play at that level. You're probably going to be too embarrassed to transfer, so you'll just ride it out. But again, the easy way out is to go to Clemson or to go to USC. Like when Andre Walker committed to USC, it was like doomsday. It was the end of time when the Glenville kid, who is a 400-pound, offensive tackle, commits to SC. And I'm just like, well, let's see what he does, and like, did we ever miss Andre Walker at any point in our careers? No. Did he want to be contrarian and different and strike out on his own? Yes. Did he love the Hollywood lifestyle? Yes. Like, and again, that's great. Again, because if you want to be great and you want to be pushed and you want to maximize your production and your potential for the NFL, like there's no better place than Ohio State, especially if you're from Ohio. But if you're scared, then you can go to Clemson, and that's great. And I'm sure you'll do amazing things. And like Jackson Carman's last game was getting ran out of the gym by Ryan Day in the Sugar Bowl with Nick Petit. Our team, we didn't miss him at all. So like when these kids are going to Clemson again, Clemson is an amazing school, like hot girls, like great campus, whatever. But their offensive line track record is like MAC level. It's terrible. Like, I mean, they don't put anybody into the league that is productive or getting big second contracts or is getting drafted high. That's just not their thing. Like they had Mitch Hyatt. Mitch Hyatt was like a 4-year starter, all ACC. He was like a 7th round pick. I don't even know if he's still in the league. When you look at us, I mean, dude, Paris Johnson's gonna sign for $150 million when he re-ups his deal. We've got a lot of guys that are going to get a lot of money over these next few years because we've got this pipeline of really good O linemen. They're doing really well. Johnny Jackson got a huge deal last year from the Rams. I mean, Taylor Decker's killing it with the Lions. It just makes all the sense in the world. So I think that it's overstated. And again, I know that like people say, well, Justin Fry was a lazy turd recruiter and Stud was a lazy turd recruiter, and every line coach that we've ever, Ed Warner, Jim Bowman, they've all been lazy turd recruiters. But like Greg Studwara, who got beaten like an Egyptian or like a Hebrew slave in the 10 Commandments, literally fielded almost our entire offensive line that won a national championship. Donnie Jackson, Carson Hinsman, Tigra Tishkabola, Josh Fryer. Like, I mean, those are all his recruits. So, and again, I love Justin Fry. I've known him for a long time, but like, Stud gets beaten to death. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, it seems like he put a lot of guys in the league and he got a lot. I mean, Donnie Jackson's had one of the greatest. And again, I went back and said this when he moved to left tackle. I was like, he has a chance to be an absolute legend. If he pulls this off and he can hang in there, and not look like Von. And again, Donnie is the guy who's a better tackle than he is a guard. I mean, I thought that from his high school tape. And when Josh Simmons showed up, I said I'd play Donnie at left tackle and Josh Simmons at right tackle, and I'd have 2 elite pass protectors, and then the inside guys I'd just figure it out. That was what I literally wrote on our message board. And people were like, "Oh, well, he's too short." And yeah, but he's a supreme athlete, strong as an ox, really smart. But yeah, it's just funny, these narratives and like these things. And I said, when we hired Tyler Bowen, and he might be, this elite genius recruiter, but I said, look, the thing that's going to benefit him the most is we have a great crop of offensive linemen in the state of Ohio this year. Like when you're the O-line coach at Ohio State, you're kind of at the mercy of what the in-state class is, because if it's a down year and you got to go to Texas and to Carolinas and Georgia and Tennessee, and you got to go pull kids that didn't grow up as Ohio State fans, like it's tough. And again, I thought that Justin Fry, as much as people want to bang on him for being, the worst recruiter in the history of mankind, I'm like, well, he got Josh Simmons and he got Seth McLaughlin, who, I mean, Josh is first round pick all day long. He'd probably be a top 10 pick if he didn't have an injury. And Seth McLaughlin won the Remington. And those were, to me, those guys count. Like, to me, portal guys count as much as a high school kid does. And you have to combine it all in the aggregate to see what is the real recruiting process. Because Justin Fry had to go get Seth McLaughlin. Like, he's an Alabama center who had offers from everywhere and visits. And he came here and loved it and committed and was an incredible add to the program. First team All-American Remington winner for the 1 year he was here. I think he helped Carson Hinsman out tremendously. Great locker room guy, great glue guy in the locker room. And the same with Josh Simmons. Like Josh Simmons, like the biggest problem with Josh Simmons is that he was grossly underrated by the idiots that do recruiting rankings, because he was rated as a 3-star kid that had UCLA offer. I mean, it was weird because like when I looked at his offers, like I said, he had Georgia and some serious offers, but they're like, well, are those real or are they not? And he ends up at San Diego State. But I mean, I watched his tape and I was like, this guy can move, and he looks solid in pass protection, smart kid. From the people I talked to in the wedding, they said this guy is really he's a good guy, tough, a lot of upside. And so, Justin Fry gets him, and it's just like a wet fart getting Josh Simmons, and he turns out to be the best tackle in America this year. It was just a tragedy that he got hurt, but because he was balling up until he got hurt in the Oregon game. He was the best tackle in America, and he's the guy that could have won the Outland and for consensus All American and everything else. So, I don't know. Like I said, I think Tyler Bone, obviously this is a nice feather in his cap to get a guy early to help recruit Sam Greer and some of these other guys in Ohio, but he's walking into a nice situation, because if it was a barren wasteland, again, like offensive line recruiting in Ohio, it's like playing cards. Like sometimes you'll get dealt three aces, and sometimes you've got, like a 9 high, offsuit or whatever. So it's like this is a incredible year for offensive linemen in Ohio, and I think that he can make some hay here, because there's 3 or 4 guys in Ohio that are Ohio State guys all day long, and I think we got a great shot to get potentially all of them. So, but what are your thoughts on that, Nevada? I'm gonna toss this film on real quick.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I'm there's no way you can do anything but compliment Tyler Bowen for getting a guy that many think is the best lineman in the state of Ohio, the second best. So I think this is a great get, especially when a lot of the experts thought he was going to Clemson. So clearly he said the right things. In my opinion, obviously, Max Riley wanted to be at Ohio State, and that for Tyler Bowen, he just couldn't screw it up, and he didn't. So I think it's a very good sign, because if he's going to be a good recruiter, he'd get a kid like this. If he's going to be a bad recruiter, he still might get a kid like this, but he might also not get a kid. So he's clearly a good recruiter, and I think that lends itself to the idea that this guy's got recruiting chops. He understands what he's doing, and he's hitting the ground running. This is a good one. This is a good hit right off the bat, and I do think it's going to be a domino for other kids to kind of follow on the offensive line. And if you guys have followed Nevadabuck for whatever number of years, you know that I have a guilty pleasure of mine is Ohio offensive linemen. Um, just simply because I feel like the position's a development position, and that kids that are from Ohio are more likely to stick it out than kids from out of state who may not want to hang around for 1 or 2 or 3 years. Or in Corey Lindsley's case, he stayed to his 4th year in the program before he ever started. So I'm not sure we'll see that anymore with the way that money is being thrown around, um, in the in this NIL. And I don't want to bum everybody out, but the amount of money that backups from Ohio State are getting to play at other places, like if we're not going to quote the numbers here, because it'll just depress you guys, and you guys won't believe it anyway. You'd be like, no way, Nevada, you're wrong. I'm telling you, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know how these schools are doing it. And then I don't know how that sets the market for players that can actually play, for starters, for stars, for All American, for Caleb Downs or for JJ Smith. When I see what backups that have never started a play at Ohio State, what they're getting to move to other schools, and these aren't bogus numbers. These are like the real deal numbers. It's crazy. So, hey, look, when you get a kid like this that's an Ohio kid that's probably more likely than not to stay around, not guaranteed, in this era of instantaneous free agency and mobility, nothing is guaranteed, but your chances are higher with an Ohio kid. So you land an Ohio lineman, you land a quality Ohio lineman, you land a quality Ohio lineman early. I'm just nothing but smiles, because I just think this is certainly bullish news for the 2026 class. A good indicator, as you said, it's a really, really strong in-state class for Ohio linemen. But I think we got the best one of the bunch in Max Riley, and a guy that can play interior. I mean, heck, I think he could play tackle. I mean, we've won with tackles that weren't any bigger than him, that weren't any more mobile than him, that guys that weren't. Not every tackle is 6'7", 320 pounds. With a with the reach of a whatever a mongoose or whatever it is. But you've got We got guys, tackles come in all shapes and sizes, and he's a heck of a player, and I'm just really excited he's going to be a Buckeye.
Does a mongoose have a long reach?
I think they do. I think mongoose they can reach in those holes with those little arms extend. And they can go in there and grab stuff. I think, or I might have just made that up. I literally might have just made that up right now.
I mean, you couldn't say a T-Rex or something.
No, T-Rex have tiny arms. T-Rex have those tiny little arms,
I
man.
mean, mongooses don't have very long arms. I'm looking at them
I
right
think
now.
I
It's like
think
a cat.
I think they do. I think they've like. Have you ever seen a cat's arm like extend? My cat like reached out this morning, was falling, and grabbed me on the thigh, and like nearly like ripped my thigh off with those claws. So that cat has some reach there, man.
Okay, I'll go. I
It's
mean, I'll
fun.
go with it. I mean, I'll bail you out on this one. It's fine.
I'm going with it.
The regional mongoose. That's an all timer. But no, I agree. Like, I mean, I would try this kid at tackle. Now, the thing is when you watch his tape, he plays tackle, guard. They pull him a little bit. Again, I think he's, probably 6'4" ish. So is that a little short for tackle? Yes. But as I said on Buckeye Scoop yesterday, I'm like, well, we won a national title with Rob Sims, who's like 6'2.5" playing left tackle, versus the Miami Hurricanes. So it wasn't like he had a vacation. He was playing against Jerome McDougal as a first round pick. And then Donnie's 6'3" and change. And I mean, Josh Simmons is 6'4" and change. So it's not like Josh Simmons is at 6'8", and he was fine. I think that, people get obsessive over the height thing, but to me, man, it's about the feet. Like, do you have the feet to play tackle? Because you have to match up against guys that can really move. When you play on the inside, most of those guys can't really move. I mean, now if they're freaks of nature, if they're Aaron Donald or some Jalen Carter type guy, that's different. But in general, like, it's a vacation to go against the interior guys because they're big and strong and stuff, but they're not going to be like shifty and tough to go. Not as tough to go against as edge guys. I mean, that's why. When you guys look at what edge guys are getting paid in the NFL, it's not an accident like Max Crosby and Myles Garrett are the two highest non-quarterbacks in the league. It's because they're fantastic edge rushers, and they give tackles nightmares. So, but I like this kid. I would bet he eventually goes inside, but like I always had a philosophy, like when we would have kids, that were like this. I mean, I'd always try him at tackle just to see if he can do tackle, because like if he can do tackle, that's like a plus. Now, if he can't and he struggles, and again, it also depends on who you get. Because if you've got, if you get Sam Greer, who's a taller kid, and if you get some taller kids, then you probably got to slot them inside. But it just depends on how the class fills out. If you get a really nice tackle class, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, let's just start them off inside and see where it goes. But I mean, we always had a philosophy like, let's see if the guy can play tackle, because like playing tackle is that's the hardest position on the offensive line by far, because you're out on the edge a lot. And if you're an elite tackle, then you're out on the edge by yourself a lot. And, that's kind of what you're looking for. If you can pass block on the edge, man, you're going to make a fortune. And that's why a guy like Paris Johnson's going to print money when he gets to his second deal. But I like the kid. He's physical. He's tough. I just think that sometimes these kids overthink it when they're just like, well, I want to go visit Clemson and, South Carolina and Auburn, and like a lot of these Ohio kids, they want to go see the world. And I'm just like, why would you want to go anywhere else when we just won the national title? And, you look at the development of our line. And again, if you're Max Riley, is there some pause when Justin Fry takes off? And the whole trio that was recruiting you is gone now. So, when you're taking photos with Mike Cellini and Justin Fry in pregame, like everyone that you knew is now gone. So you have to kind of reestablish the rapport. But at the end of the day, like, and I tell the kids this when we talk to them in recruiting, I'm like, look, you got to go where you want to go to school, because all these coaches can say whatever they want, but they can all leave after the season or during the season, or they could get fired or whatever. So, I tell these guys, like, make sure you go somewhere that you want to go to school, somewhere that you like. You like the campus, you like the academics. And I know that sounds like a cop out, but don't just pick someone because you're in love with a coach, because these coaches are as faithful as their options. And again, they're allowed to be that way because they all want to be head coaches. They all want to be they want to move up in the world. They all want to whatever. So and you see the kind of the transient nature that's going to take over Ohio State because we've got a lot of guys that are really talented, and these guys are going to get poached. And obviously Jim Knowles got poached by Penn State, Chip Kelly got poached by the Raiders. So Brian Hartline will be a head coach like in short order. And Billy Fessler will be a coordinator head coach. Keenan Bailey will be a coordinator head coach. I think Carlos Loughlin could be eventually a coordinator head coach, and Tyler Bowen certainly. He's already been an offensive coordinator, so he could be a coordinator head coach. So, these guys, you can't get sensitive if they leave, and you have to pick the place you want to go. And again, I would bet on Mickey Marotti training me, and I'd bet on Ryan Day because Ryan Day's not going anywhere. And then the rest of it is what it is, because that's the thing about college football is that guys are leaving to go to the league. Guys are, getting fired. Guys are, I mean, Matt Luke, who's the line coach at Clemson, who's done a good job. Like he was a head coach and probably wants to be a head coach again. And, is he going to be there your whole career? I don't know. But that's just kind of the way it shakes out. But yeah, I like this kid a lot. I probably done less of Sam Greer, but Nevada, where could this O-line crop rank for you? Because again, as much as I wish I could just base it upon the high school kids, I always have to combine it with the transfer portal kids now, because I can't imagine that when this kid shows up that we don't grab another tackle out of the portal or a center or because we've got, obviously Ethan is going to start at tackle this year. We've got an interesting matchup at right tackle with Phillip Daniels and also Ian Moore. It's there going to be some good battles. But what are your thoughts on where this class could end up if everything falls where it should with Tyler Bowen and Ohio State's offensive line?
Well, I mean, if you look at, for me, the greatest indicator now of recruiting success and recruiting momentum, it used to be, the buzzwords used to be comfort and relationships, and people used to say comfort and relationships. And now I don't think it's as much about comfort and relationships. I think it's about, where does your brand stand? What does your brand stand for? And how much success have you guys had on the field? How much success have you guys had advancing people to the league? And how competitive are your NIL deals? And I think on all those fronts, it's hard to imagine a time when Ohio State's been flying higher than they are now. I mean, they're the first expanded playoff champion of the playoff era. They've got a very active and supportive NIL program. They've got a young head coach, one of three active coaches now in college football that won a national championship, and he's only 45 years old. A crazy fan base, and I mean that in the best way possible. So I think this is a target-rich environment for a really good recruiter, for an energetic recruiter, for a guy like Tyler Bowen to come and take advantage of, and then you combine that with a great in-state class on offensive line. I just think I think recruiting in general is going to be excellent for Ohio State. I think recruiting in particular on the offensive line is really going to be special. I think it could be like a very special class for Ohio State because of all those factors lined up. And look, luck is sometimes part of the equation for you. I always say better be lucky than good with all these things. But Tyler Bowen's walking into a situation where he's going to be holding aces everywhere he's going, because Ohio State's never put more guys into the league. Certainly on the offensive line. I mean, you've had times where you can look back, Kirk, and there wasn't very many Ohio State guys in the league at all. And now Ohio State offensive linemen are scattered all over the league. And I think that it's getting up there and rivaling some of these other position groups that we've been so good at for so many years. So I think it's going to be I think this is going to be peak, about as good as it gets is going to be in 2026 for all those reasons. All the arrows are pointing up, and I think Tyler Bowen and Ryan Day are going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The amount of not just draft picks, but really high. I mean, the Paris Johnsons. Even go back to Billy Price. I mean, Billy Price, the first round pick. Obviously, he didn't have the career he wanted, but he was, a top 20-ish pick, which is, I mean, that's high. I mean, we had Nick Mangold went first round in the '06 draft, but there was a long time before we had another first rounder. And we had good players. Like, we had guys that played better in the NFL, but then we had a lapse for a while where, guys weren't super productive in the league. But, with Urban and Ryan, we've kind of flipped that on its head, and, starting kind of with Corey Lindsley and Norwell and Jack Mewhort and those guys all growing into what they became in the league. Taylor Decker, obviously, he's the richest out of all of them. He's still going. And then you get into kind of that next crew of Josh Myers and, Wyatt, and then, Thayer's in the league with the Raiders. I mean, you get Jonah, who signed a huge deal, just got traded to the Bears. You've had these groups, and then like the greatest one of all time is that there were some really dumb people that are media members, and I'm talking like exceptionally dumb, that talked about like when they played 4 tackles in 2021. And that was the most talented offensive line room in Ohio State history, bar none. When we had Paris Johnson playing guard, we had Thayer playing guard. Our tackles were Nick Petit and DeWand. So you got 4 starting NFL tackles that started games last year. Then you've got Luke at center, who was a 6th rounder, and he's been kind of snake bit in the league with injuries. But we had it. I mean, that's an exceptionally talented line. When they're all starting in the NFL. I mean, Luke Whippler started as a rookie in the NFL for a game or two at the end of the season. But he was hurt. He was out last year. But, and then you look at the guys that were like the backups, and it was crazy how much talent they had. They had 6 guys make all Big Ten on a 5-man starting offensive line. Cause Matt Jones made honorary mention, all Big Ten, which is like, you don't see backups make all Big Ten, but they did that year because they were so good. But yeah, like I said, I'm excited to see what these guys do, how they develop, and really who do we have in the portal? Because again, the portals, we've been outside of the Victor Cutler debacle, like we've been nails in the portal, adding Josh Simmons and Seth, and I'm excited to see Ethan Onyanwa from Rice, who's a monster, and then obviously Philip Daniels, who's going to be in a pretty tough battle with Ian, who's I think is really good. Yeah, what are your thoughts on some of these position battles on the O-line, and we'll get into some super chats, Nevada.
Well, I mean, you had a great nugget up today from the helping technician talking about how he believes Ian Moore is. I mean, last year at this time, the helping technician was talking about Carson Hinsman, and when not a lot of people were talking about Carson Hinsman, and he was like, "Look, Carson Hinsman is a dog. You got to start this guy. You got to find a place to start him on line. I mean, he's terrific." And when the injuries started happening, they started doing the line shuffle. The helping technician is like, I don't understand why they're not going to Carson Hinsman. He is a terrific player, a leader. He's everything you want, an Iron Buckeye. I don't understand why they're not going to him. And then they finally put Carson Hinsman on the field, and he balls out and helps them win the national championship. Well, he's kind of helping technician is kind of saying a similar thing about Ian Moore. He's like, this kid is a heck of a player. I know a lot of people have Daniels kind of penciled in as the right tackle heir apparent because of the NIL deal and the fact that he actually started some games for Minnesota. But he thinks Ian Moore is a player, and he thinks he's a name to be watched for. 6'6", 315 pounds, out of New Palatine, Indiana. Some, I mean, who's the head coach at New Palatine? Is that Kyle Ralph? Yeah, Kyle Ralph. So a guy that knows a little bit about Ohio line play, and I mean, Ian Moore's a really good player. So I think that's a name definitely to watch for. I think it's exciting that we've got 4 guys for the 3 spots on the interior, and with Ethan and Daniels coming in at the tackles. But Ian Moore is a guy to keep an eye on, because I think he's going to be able to provide more than adequate competition, and he might even be the starting right tackle for Ohio State, which would be against all odds. Again, given the fact that they went out and found a guy and gave money, but Ian Moore's looking really good in the winter, and I keep an eye on him in the spring.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing about the offensive line is like there's been a lot of like against all odds moments where you've seen like Luke Montgomery showing up in the playoffs after they didn't play him all year was crazy, and then he gets in there and he plays really well. Carson Hinsman was sent to the cornfield purgatory for most of the season until they needed him, and then he came in and balled out and played exceptional at guard. So I just, sometimes you just don't know, and you got to stay ready. And again, there's no guarantee that if you get beat out, and this is something I'd always tell these guys, I'm like, look, I got beat out my freshman year, and then the kid in front of me didn't play well, and then I kept plugging, and then they put me in, and I played well, and I took the spot. So you can't just hang your head if you're not the day one starter. And plus, like with injuries and the length of the season, man, I mean, you have to stay ready because the season is just too long. It's too physical. It's too um dangerous I mean you can't not be on your not be ready to go again. Like you look at Zen last year. I mean, Zen had to go in at Outson Stadium when Josh Simmons tore his patellar tendon in the first half, and it's just like there goes maybe, I don't want to say our best player on offense, but he's gonna be our highest drafted guy on offense, I'd bet. So yeah, I mean, you just gotta stay ready to go. All right, Nevada, any other thoughts? We'll get into some super chats.
No, I think the amount of competition that we have on the offensive line is great. It's not something that was unexpected, but the amount of returning starts that we have with the guys that started other places, the 4 interior guys, I think we've offensive line could absolutely be a team strength. They're going to be looking for to provide leadership. And I think that was not on the bingo card last year at this time when you saw the guys were losing. I didn't think we'd have this many return, and all of a sudden the offensive line is going to be kind of the tip of the spear for the offense. I'm excited about that.
I agree. All right, Jermaine Goins, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. Hope you're doing great tonight. Do you think that Eddie George is setting himself up to be Ohio State's next coach? Very interesting thought. I'm sure that's crossed his mind plenty of times. Nevada, I'll let you go first on this one.
I'm sure that's what he's aspiring to. I think everybody that's ever played at Ohio State, I mean, it's the best job in college football, and if you played here, you'd certainly want to, throw your hat in the ring. I don't know if it's realistic, but why not? I mean, he's cutting his teeth at Tennessee State and now going to a MAC school, which is a really really tough job. I mean, if he's successful and can go to a mid major or do something and be better, I mean, why not? I'm sure it's in the back of his mind. Do I think it's likely? No, because only one person's going to get the job, whoever that is, and it's a plum position. I mean, it literally is the best job in all of college football. So I'm sure he may be thinking about it, but I'm rooting for him to have success, and who knows? We'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's. I'm sure that he wanted to step up the competition and try to keep building his brand and his coaching resume. But you got to think about who, if Ryan Day got shot to Mars today, and we had to pick a new coach, like who are the candidates that are the most likely? Obviously, Brian Hartline's at the top of the list because he's now the coordinator. And again, a lot of it depends on how he does as an offensive coordinator to make him a realistic candidate. Does he have to go somewhere else and run a program, or can he be on the Ryan Day program and show up as coordinator and get promoted? Just depends on how he does and how well he runs the offense. And there's gonna be a lot of pressure on Brian. But Brian's been coaching since like 17, so he's been around the block for a while, and he's got to be ready to go. Obviously, James Laurinaitis is a guy that I think a lot of players would rally around just because he's a legendary player and a great captain and a great person. Doesn't have coordinator experience yet, but he's the guy that I think could be groomed to be a DC. And I think he'll learn a lot from Matt Patricia. That next tier would be, Luke Fickell, who obviously had a run here in 11, didn't go great because he couldn't really hire his staff and didn't have a quarterback. But he's not doing, he's doing okay at Wisconsin. They extended him. But I mean, if he got named the head coach tomorrow, would our fan base be excited? No, I don't think so. And I love Luke, but I just think that that's just kind of where we're at right now. Then you have Eddie, who's going to be BG, and the MAC is not for the faint of heart. The MAC is, and again, I'm not saying that Eddie's some timid soul, but the MAC's tough. A lot of even talent. I mean, there might be a couple of down programs, like Kent was terrible last year in some certain schools, but we'll see. I mean, like the MAC is, I mean, there's a reason why Scott Loeffler left and went from being a head coach to being a quarterbacks coach for the Eagles, is because it's kind of it's not a dead end, but it's pretty close. Like I think if Scott Loeffler wants to be a coach at a higher level institution, like I don't know how much consideration you're going to get as the head coach at Bowling Green unless you just rip stuff up and you go 12-0 year over year, which is tough because again, like when you're at these MAC schools, like your best players are going to get poached every single year. And I've said it a million times, but none of the kids that are playing in the MAC have ever dreamed of playing in the MAC. They dreamed of playing in the Big Ten and the SEC, period. So if they get that opportunity and they get a bag of money to go to Ohio State or wherever, they're going to take it. So that's like the tough part. And he dealt with that at Middle Tennessee State. I mean, it's just is what it is. This is part of being at the lower tier where you don't have the luxuries that the monster schools like Ohio State have. So it'll be interesting. Like again, everyone's going to be rooting for Eddie, obviously, and if he's playing on a Tuesday night versus Akron, like people tune in because Eddie's on the sideline, and he's going to be a lot of people's adopted MAC school because of who he is and what he did at Ohio State. So, but I mean, the biggest problem with all of it is that Ryan's really young. Ryan's not 65 years old; he's 45 years old. So, unless he wants to go elsewhere, which could happen because I think that eventually he'll want to try the NFL. Who knows? Do I think that that's anytime soon? No. Do I have any insight? No. But I just say that all these guys eventually, if they get the right opportunity and the right job, like the NFL is the ultimate battleground, the ultimate test. So a lot of these guys like Urban wanted to try it, obviously didn't do well at Jacksonville, and a lot of Harbaugh went back because the ultimate in football is winning the Super Bowl, and Ryan's already got his natty, so it just depends on where he goes. And again, I've said a million times, like if I own an NFL team, the number one trade I want my head coach is he's a quarterback developer, and Ryan's the best in the world. Him and Lincoln Riley are the two best in the world right now. And obviously, I think Ryan's star is much higher than Lincoln's is at this moment. So here's my opinion, but I hope Eddie does incredible work at BG because everybody loves Eddie George. He's a stud. RJ Story, Ranjit, appreciate you, my dude. Pink Floyd piano cover artist. Thanks for the 100. Appreciate you, my dude. Hire Chris Carter as wide receiver coach under Brian Hartline's mentorship. In addition to CC's great coaching potential, he's an all-time great. Whom our young wide receivers would be excited to learn from. Nevada OH. That would be interesting because, Brian obviously is a tremendous wide receiver coach, but do I really think that he knows more about wide receiver play than Chris Carter? I don't know. That would be tough. I mean, Chris Carter is literally one of the greatest technical route runners in the history of football. Hall of Famer, well before his time when it came to just the accuracy of his route running. And again, we've interviewed him. He's on BuckeyeScoop.com. He's a member of BuckeyeScoop.com. He is a one of my favorite players ever. So the second question is, would he want to commit to the grind of being a wide receiver coach? I mean, that's the thing, is it's a hellacious grind. Do I think he'd be magnificent at it? Yeah, but he's also, he's lived in South Florida for 30 years now. So, I mean, like to pull up roots and move to Ohio, I don't know, but I think he'd be fantastic. Again, I like I said, we had a great interview with him where we had him for about an hour and a half and we took questions and, but he was helping out at Florida Atlantic. And I think that a lot of these NFL guys, they're getting into coaching, because a lot of them need healthcare benefits. I mean, frankly, they've made a bunch of money, but when your insurance runs out and you're 5 years out of the league, all of a sudden it's like, it's sometimes hard to get insurance when you're some offensive or defensive lineman who played 15 years in the NFL, and they'll look at you and like, well, this guy's beat up and got all these problems, so we don't want to insure him. So a lot of these guys are getting into coaching for that. And just to keep the juice flowing. And plus, obviously, the salaries have exploded in the last 15 years. So, but I would love CC to be our receivers coach. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think it's practical. But you've seen a lot of these guys that are really good at what they do just jump right into being a full-time coach. But what are your thoughts, Nevada? RJ says hire Chris Carter as a wide receiver coach under Brian Hartline's mentorship. In addition to CC's great coaching potential, he's an all-time great. Who are young wide receivers would be excited to learn from? I'll be honest. I'm not sure how many of our young wide receivers know who Chris Carter is. Again, I'm not trying to, crap on him, but it's just I'm stunned at young people and their lack of awareness and their lack of knowledge of the history of what they've been around. But it'd be interesting to see if they actually knew how good Chris Carter was. But what are your thoughts, Nevada?
Well, I mean, I was surprised this year when Emeka kind of like went through and assembled a guy with he's talking about a lot of the greats from Ohio State, and so I think it'd be surprised. I think we'd be surprised that they probably know a little bit more about it than we think. How practical is it? If you'd asked me that question 2 years ago, I'd have said just no chance that something like that would happen. But as you noted, I mean, with guys like Coach Prime jumping into head coaching positions and Pac-Man Jones, and I mean, just all over the place, guys are jumping in as head coaches. I'd never say never. And certainly, I mean, could it be an analyst position, or could it be some sort of an affiliate position that has some on-field coaching responsibility? Yeah, look, there's a logistical issue because he lives down in South Florida, but the way salaries are going right now, and for a guy who's competitive, not the craziest idea in the world. Like I said, 2 years ago, I would have said 0% chance. Now I'd say it's 10%, but that's a heck of a lot more than zero. And I think he'd be great on the staff, and I think he'd be a real credit to the entire staff because he's certainly had all the credentials and all the experiences to really lend a hand.
Well, yeah, I think that what Dion has done at Colorado, where he's brought in as many former NFL guys as I think I've ever seen on a staff. Where he's got Domata Pico is on his staff as a D line coach, Warren Sapp's on staff as a D line coach, Marshall Falk is his running backs coach. I mean, he's loaded up the staff with NFL guys, and again, I think that's good. And those guys don't necessarily have to pay their dues as a GA or an analyst or whatever. So, but I think that a lot of these NFL guys are trying to figure out what to do once they're done. And I also think that, the salaries have just exploded where you've got running back coaches that make, $1 million now. And, like I said, in 2011, it's been 15 years. So it's a long time, but I mean, our quarterbacks coach was making 150 grand. Now our quarterbacks coach is making 800 grand. So that's a humongous increase, let alone coordinators making 2 million, 2.5, 3 million. Head coach is obviously making 15, 16, 17 million. The numbers have just skyrocketed in the last, and again, and that's great. I mean, obviously the TV streaming rights and, the amount of prestige that a university gets for winning a national title. Like, I mean, a guy like Ryan Day is worth every penny because if we're paying him 15 or 12 million or whatever, like, we're making 10 times that off of his efforts winning a national title. So, again, that's just my analysis. But, like I said, I mean, CC worked with Tom Herman and his staff last year at Florida Atlantic as kind of a wide receiver analyst where, again, I think that for him, that's kind of a sweet spot because when you're in that role, you get your benefits, you get, he doesn't need the money, but he also doesn't have to go on the road and recruit. So like, if you could just say, hey, you're going to be a coach here, but you don't have to go on the road and recruit. Like that's as good as it gets. That's something I talked about where, you give some of these guys an analyst job and they can stay home and not recruit. That's as good as it gets. Cause the recruiting is where it gets dicey. Cause I just think that some of these guys don't want to go travel, the country begging kids to play there. And this is, not really, it's like the worst part of the whole college football gig. Nick Moss 71. Thanks for the 5. Appreciate you. What is your very early guess to the starting 5 offensive linemen? I'll go first on this one. Ethan Oniano is going to be our left tackle for sure. Luke Montgomery will be our left guard. Carson Hinson will be our center. Austin Sourville will be our right guard. And I think as of today, based on what we paid him, Philip Daniels will be our starting right tackle. They're paying him like a starter. They expect him to play like a starter. But I think that Ian Moore is going to push him hard. So I don't think they're going to hand it to him. Obviously, they're going to preach competition and, sometimes I think there's legit competition. Sometimes I think the competition is a farce. In the last few years, there's been some farces and, and again, our line coaches haven't always been right about who they've played, because I don't think that Carson Hinsman should have sat behind Tegra last year. And again, I don't like to pick on Tegra, but Carson was much better when he played, and so was Austin Seyerveld, and even Luke Montgomery. Like, Luke Montgomery didn't play all year until the playoffs. Tegra struggled a lot, and you had better players behind him that didn't play. So the O-line coach isn't always right. Nevada, your thoughts? Anything different on your early starting offensive line guess?
I mean, yeah, I'll go with Ethan, Austin, Carson, Tegra, and I'm gonna be a contrarian and say Ian Moore. I just think that I know that Philip Daniels is a guy they want to be there, but I really think Ian Moore's a dude. I think his talent is going to be just too much to ignore, and I really think he's going to be a problem on the right side for Ohio State. They're gonna have to figure out a way to keep him happy. And I think he's got big time upside, and so I'll go with that. Kind of a long shot, but I'm basing it a lot on the helping technician because I trust his judgment and his evaluations. So that would be my starting five.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could easily happen. I think the right tackle job is going to be one of the hottest battles of spring and fall camp. I really do. Geo did 42. Thanks for the 5. Hope you're good, my dude. Max O'Reilly's dad is 6'8", so there's room for him to grow. Yeah, I mean, like, again, there's guys that can get another inch or two on their height while they're in college, and if he goes from 6'4" to 6'6" then I think it's a different conversation. But I think athletically he's good enough to play tackle. So again, if a guy has a chance to play tackle, I think you try him at tackle. Now, if he can't play tackle, then you guys put him right down at guard. That's fine. But yeah, like, I mean, he played both at Avon, played tackle, played guard. I think he played a little bit more guard last year because I think that's where teams were recruiting him, so they want to put that on film. But if you're a big athletic guy and you can move your feet and you're long and lean and you've got decent reach, like, you can play tackle. And you literally can't get enough guys that can play both. So, but tackle's always way harder than guard. So I would try him out there. But yeah, hopefully he keeps growing, and I think that'll be good for him. Thugly TV, thank you for the 5. How do they anoint jersey numbers? I want to know if the new skilled staffers will have single digits like Tate and Peoples. I think the jersey number thing is always very touchy because there's some guys that want certain numbers and they have to earn them, or they have to, I mean, unless you're just a stone cold monster like JJ Smith. I mean, Ryan would have given him the sun, the moon, and the stars, but he definitely was going to give him number 4 because that was the number he wanted. But most freshmen come in wearing double digits just because there's always upperclassmen that want the single digits. And you saw that last year when Jaden Ballard left, quit the team and went to Wisconsin. Like, by the time we played Tennessee, somebody had his single digit. I think he was number 9, and somebody already took the number just because they wanted, everybody wants a single digit. So a lot of it has to do with your effort in the weight room, your effort in the classroom, your effort everywhere. If you're a good kid, you work hard, you do everything right, and there's a number that you really want. If it becomes open, a lot of times it's seniority and kind of your extended your record, basically. Like, okay, this kid's been good. He hasn't been late to class. He always on time to workouts. He's a leader, blah, blah, blah. He wants number 7 or number 6 or number 1 or whatever. Then it's a deal. But, like, something that's going to happen this year is like Sonny Styles is going to be the block O this year. So do I bet that somebody will take number 6 the second that Sonny goes to 0? Yeah. I'd bet that in a millisecond because these guys all want single digits. Like, that's the cool thing about being an offensive lineman is, like, I didn't really have a choice. Like, they gave me 74. They didn't ask me what number I wanted because I was a tight end in high school. So I wore 84 in high school. So I couldn't wear that in college. So they gave me 74, which was fine. I was completely perfect with it. And I liked it a lot. But it'll be interesting to see it'll be interesting to see if they put Ennis in 1 because he's wanted 1 since he got here. And, they gave it to Quinshawn last year because Quinshawn was obviously a junior and Brandon had to wear 11 last year. But I know he wants 1 and all of the really good players want 1. That's like the most coveted number on the team. Nevada, anything to add to the jersey number stuff? I know that it's touchy just because, again, you've run baseball teams and hockey teams and you've been around football teams, and there's always battles for numbers. Like if somebody wants to wear the same number and they're on the same side of the ball, that can get touchy. But any thoughts on the distribution of numbers between players and teams?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just look who gets the numbers, because that tells you what Ohio State thinks
Oh
about
yeah.
them. Because when they were talking about Philip Bell having wearing number one on the sideline during the bowl prep, you know that tells me that Ohio State thinks he's a player, because you don't just give that number out to a jamoke, even if it's just temporarily. So look at the numbers, see who's getting the single digits, and it generally foots to people that Ohio State likes or feels good about, or feels that they have some sort of a future with. Because as you said, those are the most coveted numbers. In general, people want those numbers, and so Ohio State has to be very judicious about handing them out.
And one thing I do know, that if you do get like a coveted number and you screw around, you'll lose it fast. I mean, we had like EJ Underwood was classic, because EJ, you recruit next pro, remember EJ. EJ was super talented. He always was in trouble. He always did dumb things off the field. And so he got number two his like junior year. And he'd been dying to wear number two. I mean, number two's, I mean, that's a great number in Ohio State lore. And then he screwed up and he did something stupid. Like, I'm not going to completely out him. And Trust put him in like 49 or something, that like terrible. And like these guys are like almost in tears when you do that to them, because a lot of these guys, like their entire livelihood revolves around perception and looking sweet, and they want to look good, feel good, play good, like the old Dion thing. And so when you put a guy that's in two, which is a nice number, narrow number, prolific number, and then he screws up and you put him in like 48 or 49, which is a number that has like minimal history, it's always hilarious. Like you'd see these guys would be out at practice and like they'd be ready to cry, because you take their single digitoid, you put them in some just terrible looking number where they look like a fullback, and it just wrecks their entire mental state and their swag. And but it's a great disciplinary tactic, because I mean Urban did the same thing. It's like if a kid's screwed around, he's losing his number, and you're going to put him in something, usually something 49, 48, 40, like one of the numbers that none of the guys want, 43. I mean, it's like you put some cornerback out there in 49, and it wrecks their whole day. But I used to love that kind of that stuff, because that's a great way, because these kids, they'll go get like a pendant that's got their number on it, and then all of a sudden they go from their pendant say number two, and then they're in a 49 jersey, and it's like, oh, changes their entire perspective and all their mojo. But Nevada, any thoughts on the jersey stuff? Because it is interesting, because like again, there are people that are really attached to jersey numbers, and then there's a guy like me who, like, I played on 5 NFL teams in my 3-year career. I never got 74 anywhere I went, and I was always like, I don't want to say I was angry because it didn't really matter, but it's just like I was like, I always wanted my old number that I had in college. I could never get it. There's always someone that had it or was retired or whatever. So, you had any thoughts to the jersey thought process? Because again, in hockey, it's real touchy, and goalies usually wear 1 in 30. They don't get to wear like 98 as a goalie and that kind of stuff. But any thoughts?
Yeah, it is just funny how there's just different, strikers in soccer we're 10, and I mean, it is just kind of funny how there's just different numbers that mean so much. And but I look at you. I know you always look at the, like, you're the caretaker of the 74, so you always want the 74s on your team to do well for Ohio State. There, you feel like they've got a responsibility to the number to not make you look bad.
I mean, you always root for your number to do well. And so like when I left and Mike Adams had it for a year, and then he switched to 75, then Jack Mewhort had it, and Donnie Jackson did a great job with it. And I was like, John Hicks is the greatest 74 that's ever lived, not even close. So it's like, you want to represent, you want to, Kirk Ferentz, who I really have a high regard for, he had a great saying. He said, leave the number better than where you found it. And I was like, that's a nice little saying, because like again, when you're at Ohio State, and if you get like number two, and you look at the history of number 2, and you've got Chris Carter, Malcolm Jenkins, Olave, Chase Young. I mean, it's hard to leave it better when you found it when you've got like NFL Hall of Famers and top 5 picks and those types of guys, but that's part of it. I mean, Mike Doss, obviously 3-time All-American. And I'm sure I probably left out 50 guys, but I don't know. That's the cool part about going to a place like Ohio State is that, in general, like, unless you're just out of this universe, like there's probably somebody in the history that was better than you, significantly better than you. And like, that's like John Hicks was, God rest his soul, was second in the Heisman as an offensive tackle. So, I mean, like that's about as gaudy as it could ever get, playing at Ohio State at a position. So, all right, Nevada, any final thoughts? I can wrap this thing up.
Just want to say one more time, if you guys like coffee, help us out at buckeyescoopbrew.com. We've got our own coffee. All the proceeds go to Pay It Forward. So if you like coffee and you want to do good, you can do good while doing good. buckeyescoopbrew.com. Some great coffee. The coffee we sent out, we're just being overwhelmed with the orders right now, and we just want to say thank you to everybody who's tried it, and leave reviews once you get it and try it out. Let us know what you think, because we want to get the feedback and see what you guys think and what we should do for the next round of roastings. But thank you guys very much.
And let me know in the comments as I wrap this show up your thoughts on a potential meetup. Would you guys show up to a meetup if we had a meetup? Let me know. I want to hear it in the comments. If we do the photo op, I'm going to say make sure you guys subscribe to Apple Podcasts. You do the Apple Podcasts, we'll be ready to roll. But that's going to be something that will be growing all of our platforms. We'll see everybody. I think it'll be great. But I think it's going to happen. So I'll let you guys know where and when. I think it'll be fantastic. But we appreciate you guys. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate all that you guys do for helping us grow this channel. It's been incredible, the growth. Keep spreading the good word. Send the show to your folks that love Ohio State and help us keep this thing rolling and being the #1 Ohio State show by far. So with that being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow night. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you at 7:10 tomorrow. Go Bucks.